Hello dear students, welcome to Practically. We bring learning alive, and in today's session we are going to discuss 5 most important questions from the chapter Biodiversity and its Conservation. This is for your preparation for term 2 CBSE biology exam. So let's begin with the first important question. How is the 6th episode of extinction of species on Earth now currently in progress different from the 5 earlier episodes? What is it due to? Explain the various causes that have brought about this difference. Okay, so here's a question. This question is for 3 marks. Let's see how to answer it and what are the important keywords which should cover this answer. So, the Earth is heading towards the 6th extinction due to the human activities, and which is called as the anthropogenic extinction, which is basically increase in number of species are disappearing from Earth due to various human activities. Human activities are affecting the man-made mass extinction is causing to it, and the main reason is depletion of biodiversity, which is occurring at a very short period of time. And there is an organization called World Conservation and Monitoring Center. It reported that around 384 plant species and 533 animal species have become extinct. Even if you don't remember the exact number, you can just mention in your answer that these many plant and animal species are already getting extinct and at a very high rate of extinction, which is obviously 10 times higher than the earlier rate. And the important point regarding extinction which have been noted are so the tropical forest which are mainly found in the tropical regions around the equator, they are getting extinct. The species are getting extinct at the rate of almost 2 to 5 species per year, which is a very high extinction rate. And about 50% of species may become extinct. This is an estimation at the end of the 21st century, which is really a very high rate of extinction. So because of this, the Earth is going close to the 6th episode of extinction. And again, there is loss of various plant species, especially the endemic animals. If you remember the definition of endemic species, which are localized to a particular region and they are found in that particular region, mostly in the biodiversity hotspots, they are getting extinct at a very high rate. And yeah, so because of all these reasons, the Earth is heading towards the 6th extinction. Okay, now the causes for it, this is very important to mention the causes. The first very cause is increase in human population and settlement. Okay, because obviously if the population will increase, there will be more exploitation of resources and it will also encroach a lot of land and other surface which can harm other species, especially which are endemic to that particular region. Second cause is hunting. Although there are a lot of laws which are made to prevent hunting, but still there are a lot of for many resources, hunting is done illegally. It is practiced at many places, which is especially affecting the endangered species on more higher rate. Then over exploitation of natural resources, which is obviously the first point is connected to this, and destruction of habitat. This is a very important point or cause of the extinction. If the we know habitat is the environment or the place where particular organisms can survive or live. If you destroy their home itself, they cannot survive, they cannot live. So this is another important point for cause for the extinction. Okay, so you have to just mention these important keywords and points in this answer. So yeah, with this, let's move on to the next question, which is a more descriptive question. Discuss the characteristics of India's biodiversity. Okay, so let's see how to answer it. Yeah, so obviously India has a huge amount of biodiversity, which is obviously not evenly distributed. It has various regions which we need to mention. So first important thing, India contains 10 biogeographic regions. So you need to remember the number. There are total 10 biogeographic regions, which include, what are those? The Himalayan, starting from the topmost part, the north part, Himalayan, Trans-Himalayan, Indian desert, semi-arid zone, Western Ghats, Deccan Peninsula and the Gangetic Plain, and Northeast India, islands, coast. These are the 10 biogeographic regions of India. Okay, so do remember this, because it will be helpful for you to mention them in any of your answer, or there might be some question related to it. If you have to remember this region, just remember the map of India. I'm sure you all of you must have studied in geography the basic map structure. Starting from the north, these regions are named. Okay, then also according to statistic, India is world's 12th leading biodiversity center of the origin of cultivated plants, and although India has only 2.4% of land area of the world, it has 8.1% of the global species biodiversity. So that shows us the density or the intensity of the high level of biodiversity found in India. Again, these numbers, try to remember them, because if in the answer, if you mention proper statistics and numbers, there are high chances that it obviously gives a good impression that you know the topic or subject in detail, and it can help you fetch good marks. Okay, then there are about 45,000 species of plants. Again, now this is an additional information. If you don't remember the number, it's fine, but you just need to mention that there are various species of plants and animals, and there are a lot of species which are yet to be discovered. Okay, because obviously there are so many regions in India which have not been explored that in detail. So this discusses the characteristics of India's biodiversity. The answer continues further. This has been mentioned in NCERT, so you can just remember some points out of it. Like, according to Robert May's global estimate, 22% of total species have been recorded, out of which India has a very huge number. Again, these numbers are optional. If you remember, it's good, but at least mention the basics. Then, yeah, this is again very important point which we need to remember. See, this chapter itself, biodiversity and conservation, has lot of facts and data. It does not have a lot of concepts, but you'll have to remember a lot of numbers, data in this chapter. Okay, so because that is what will help you to answer the question more specifically. India has 5 natural world heritage sites, 14 biosphere reserves and 89 national parks, 492 wildlife sanctuaries and 2 hotspots. Again, this data is important. We need to remember it. It is also useful for competitive exams. So do remember these numbers. Okay, 5 natural world heritage sites, 14 biosphere reserves, 89 national parks, 492 wildlife sanctuaries and 2 hotspots. And if you remember, out of these 2 hotspots, 1 is present in Western Ghats. So yeah, so this answers the question about discussing India's biodiversity. Moving ahead, here is the next important question. Can you think of a situation where we deliberately want to make a species extinct? How would you justify it? Okay, let's see how to answer and what all points should be covered. So yeah, can you think of a situation where we deliberately want to make a species extinct? Yes, it does happen in case of organisms which are harmful, or which cause more harm to than benefit to the nature or the people around. So that includes various kinds of parasites and disease causing microbes, which we obviously deliberately want to eradicate from the earth. We want them to get extinct as they are harmful to human beings. Okay, because if that is causing disease on a large scale, it has to be removed. Now, the best example of it, if you remember from history, is elimination of smallpox virus from the world. And that has been done with the help of vaccinations. A mass scale vaccination was done in such a way that smallpox was not able to cause any disease, and then it got eradicated completely. Okay, so this shows that if human wants to deliberately make any species extinct, they can. Okay, and along with this, obviously a lot of other diseases came up, and we are trying to eradicate them also. For example, recently the polio and hepatitis B vaccination programs are going on, which have been trying to eradicate these diseases as well. Okay, so this is the example. So this answers this question, the previous question. This is a 2-mark question. You need to mention why, whether it is possible or not, and with help of relevant examples. Okay, Now, moving further, write critical notes on following. There are 3 points. You will find a lot of such questions in the board exams where one question has 2 to 3 subparts. So it has 3 subparts: hotspots of biodiversity, ex situ conservation, and India's effort in biodiversity. Okay, let's see how to answer. Hotspots of biodiversity. So the term hotspot was coined by Norman Mayers. Again, scientist's name is very important. Do remember, it's always good if you quote that in your answer. So Norman Mayer was the first one to give this concept of hotspots, which is specific areas for in situ conservation. So if you remember the 2 types of conservation, in situ and ex situ. In situ is conservation in their natural habitat at that particular location. Ex situ is out of their habitat. And the hotspots are, what are hotspots? They are richest and most threatened reservoirs of plants and animals on earth. That's why they're called as hotspots. Like, they're very important, as well as they're delicate and fragile. And what are the criteria for determining hotspot? First criteria, number of endemic species. Again, this term endemic has come. So if you remember, the species which are localized to a particular region found only in that habitat, those are the endemic species. And also degree of threat, which is measured in terms of habitat loss. There are total 25 hotspots, only 25 hotspots in entire world, out of which 2 are in India, and they are what? The Western Ghats and Eastern Himalayas. This information is very important. We need to know where are these 2 hotspots present: Western Ghats and in the Eastern Himalayan region. Yes, hello Satish, welcome in today's session. We are discussing 5 most important questions from the chapter Biodiversity and Conservation. So we are discussing how to write the answer, which keywords to cover. If you have any query, doubt, you can obviously comment and ask. Others also who are watching. Let's move ahead. Hotspot of Eastern Himalayas is active center for evolution and rich in diversity of flowering angiosperm specially, whereas Western Ghats have semi-evergreen forest. Okay, so these are the 2, and the Western Ghats include 2 main centers of biodiversity, that is Akastamalai Hills and Silent Valley. Okay, this is an additional information, but at least you need to mention these 2 points. What are hotspots? Basically, they are the areas of richest and most threatened reservoirs of plants and animals. What is the criteria for determining hotspot? Endemic species and degree of threat. Remember the keywords. Okay, and then what are the 2 main hotspots? They are Western Ghats and Eastern Himalayas. These points are important to be covered. If you have time, you can elaborate more, you can write extra, but at least try to cover these points for this answer. Okay, moving ahead to the second part of the answer, if you have to write a note on ex situ conservation. So yeah, as discussed before, ex situ means maintenance of off-site collections, either in gardens. So now these are various areas of ex situ conservation: gardens, botanical gardens, storing seeds. This is done in the seed bank or the gene bank also, or pollen banks. These are different places where these things are stored out of their original natural habitat. That is the ex situ conservation. And yeah, so it is also part of organic farming, which farmers have been trying to maintain the genetic diversity by preserving these various plants or crops out of their opinion. And advantages of ex situ conservation, what are those? So threatened and endangered species can be conserved. This is a very important point for this ex situ conservation. Genetic strains of commercially important plants can be preserved, because see, in ex situ conservation we can actually conserve the genetic data of that particular organism, and in this way we can conserve the information. And suppose if the species get extinct at any particular point, then we can use that genetic information to again revive the plant. Okay, so this is why it is very useful, seed banks especially. Then gametes of threatened species can be preserved, as discussed before, which are helpful for conserving the plant or any organism in ex situ way. And loss of biodiversity can be reduced, because as we have seen that how human activities are affecting the various habitats, so they can be conserved or preserved with the help of ex situ conservation. Eggs can be fertilized in vitro. We have studied the various types of fertilization, especially the in vitro fertilization, where the fertilization is done in the natural conditions. And last, can conserve large number of species and also maintain their aesthetic value. Okay, so again, it depends upon for how many marks this ex situ conservation note is asked. For that many marks, we can accordingly maintain the answer. If you have to elaborate more, you can elaborate more, but at least mention the important keywords. Okay, now moving ahead towards the third part of the answer, that is India's effort in biodiversity. So India's effort in biodiversity have been taken through various measures. What are those? First, setting up of bodies like Indian Board for Wildlife, Bombay Natural History Society. These are the measures taken by government specifically. So there are certain acts and plans which were made, which we need to mention. Then observation of first week of October as National Wildlife Week, which is for awareness about the wildlife preservation, and introduction of Wildlife Protection Act, which was set up in 1972. Some of the years we need to remember. Obviously, this is not a history exam, but for some important points we need to remember, just like we need to remember the name of scientists, we also need to remember some important years of acts. And then setting up of sanctuaries, national parks and biosphere reserve. We all know that how these three things play a very important role in conservation, whether it is ex situ or in situ. Okay, fine. So moving ahead, describe the species area relationship. A very important question. Many times question has been asked on this particular topic. So let's try to answer it. Yeah. So in this answer, the very first important part is drawing a well-labeled diagram of species area relationship. So you can see this is a simple graph, but what is important over here is labeling. Okay. So on x-axis we have area and on y-axis we have species richness. That is the different types of species available. And this is the curve which we obtained. That is the connection between species and area. Now actually you might be wondering from where did they get this particular formula. So there are some mathematical calculations involved behind it, but then it is beyond the scope of our syllabus. Just we need to remember that this is how the species area relationship is connected. This is the formula. If you apply mathematics and write it in log form, then this is how we can write, like log S is equals to log C. If it is multiplication between C and A, that will convert into addition. When we write in log form, this Z will come ahead, Z log A. This is the log form of this formula. And on log scale, you will get a straight single line if you plot this curve. And what are the different points or the parts of this formula? S stands for species richness. Okay, as we discussed what is species richness, the different types of species which are present in that particular area. Then Z is slope of the line, that is regression coefficient. Again, this is a mathematical term, we need not get into detail of it. Just remember what it denotes. Z is the slope of line regression coefficient. A is area, whatever area we are considering to measure the species richness, that particular area. And C is y-intercept. So C over here represents that, like after doing various experiments, ecologists came to a point that value of Z line ranges between 0.1 to 0.2 only, irrespective of the taxonomic group. So as per the taxon, whichever part we are going to include, irrespective of that, it is 0.1 to 0.2 for the particular region. But if you do the same analysis in a very large areas like a continent, now we know continent is a really huge area to be studied. In such cases, when we study the species area relationship for a very large area, at that time the Z value ranges between 0.6 and 1.2. So you can see the value of Z becomes higher, means the line becomes more steeper. That is because of the variety of species richness found in the large area. Okay, and the Z value of frugivorous birds and mammals in tropical forests is found to be 1.15. This is again an additional information. What is important over here is to mention the scientist name, that is Alexander von Humboldt. he was the one who gave this species area relationship. This is important to mention the scientist's name. And even if you don't see the graph, it's very obvious that as the species richness increases with increase in area. But this happens only up to a certain limit. Okay. Beyond that limit, it won't grow. So that's why you can see, if you are drawing this curve over here, initially it's increasing at a very high rate. But as you move ahead, the curve almost becomes a straight line. It is becoming constant. No matter how much area is increasing further, the species richness is not increasing anymore. Because it has some limit. Beyond certain limit, the species area won't grow, no matter how much area will grow. Okay. So that is what the basic analysis or conclusion was made from the species area relationship analysis. Okay. So this is how we can describe the species area relationship. The graph is important. The formula, what the different words or the letters in the formula represent, and who has given it. Okay. These points are very important. Moving ahead. So this was the last question, by the way, for today's 5 important questions. So I hope you all have understood, and we are going to discuss more such sample paper questions in coming sessions. So stay tuned with us, and thank you for watching. If you have any doubt, any query for any of the questions, do write a comment, and you will find this information, all PPTs and data on our Practically app. So do download that, and thank you for watching. All the best for the preparation.